The alarms screamed through the command center of Velian Prime. Commander Yuna ran down the metal corridor, her boots hitting the floor in rapid beats. She had been on this alien station for 2 years as Earth's diplomatic observer, but she had never heard these alarms before. When she burst through the doors, the main screen showed a sight that made her blood run cold. Hundreds of red dots swarmed across the star map like angry insects. The Velian defense fleet showed as blue dots, and there were far too few of them. How many? Yuna asked, catching her breath. High Chancellor Theon turned his large eyes toward her. His insect-like face could not show emotion the way human faces did, but his clicking voice carried fear. 3,000 ships, maybe more. The Krenth swarm has come. Yuna moved closer to the display. She had read about the Krenth in Earth's intelligence files. They were conquerors who moved from system to system, taking everything and leaving nothing behind. Dozens of civilizations had fallen to them over the centuries. "What are your orders, Chancellor?" asked one of the Velian officers. Theon's antennae drooped. "We fight. What else can we do?" The battle began badly. Yuna watched as the Velian ships moved into formation. They were good ships, well designed for defense. But the Krenth had numbers that made defense meaningless. For every Velian vessel, there were 10 Krenth attackers. The first Velian ship exploded in a flash of light. Then another. Then 3 more. "Send word to the outer colonies," Theon ordered. "Tell them to evacuate if they can." "Chancellor," Yuna said quietly, "you need to call for help." Theon made a sound like grinding stones, which Yuna had learned meant disagreement. "We have already sent requests to the Galactic Council. No one will come. The Krenth are too strong. No one wants to anger them." "What about Earth?" The command center went quiet. Several Velian officers looked at each other. Humans were new to the galaxy. They had only made first contact 50 years ago. In galactic terms, they were children. "Commander Yuna," Theon said gently, "your people are brave, but you have maybe 50 warships in your entire fleet. What could you do against 3,000 Krenth vessels?" Yuna felt anger rise in her chest, but she pushed it down. Theon was not being cruel. He was being realistic. From his perspective, humans were a small new species with limited resources. "Let me send the message anyway," Yuna said. "Please." Theon watched as another 4 Velian ships vanished from the display. He clicked his mandibles together. "Very well. It cannot hurt." Yuna moved to a communication station and entered her encrypted command codes. Her fingers shook slightly as she typed. She was asking Earth to risk everything for aliens they barely knew. "Earth Fleet Command, this is Commander Yuna, Diplomatic Station Velian Prime," she said into the transmitter. "The Velian coalition is under attack by the Krenth swarm. Estimated enemy force 3,000 plus. Velian forces cannot hold. Requesting immediate military assistance. Repeat, requesting immediate military assistance." She added the tactical data and sent it through the quantum relay. The message would reach Earth in minutes. The response would take much longer. "It is done," she told Theon. "How long until they answer?" he asked. "If they send a message back, maybe an hour. If they send ships..." Yuna paused. "Standard drives would take 2 weeks to get here." Theon's antennae drooped even lower. "We have perhaps 3 days." The next 72 hours were the worst of Yuna's life. She watched as the Krenth pushed deeper into Velian space. The outer colonies fell first, their populations captured or killed. The Velian defense fleet fought with courage that made Yuna's heart ache, but courage alone could not stop the swarm. Earth Fleet Command sent a brief message. "Request received. Stand by." That was all. 2 words. Stand by. Yuna wanted to scream. She wanted to demand answers, but she knew how the military worked. If they said stand by, something was happening. On the second day, the Krenth reached the core worlds. Theon ordered a full evacuation of 2 planets, pulling their populations back to Velian Prime. The refugee ships streamed through space like a river of metal and hope. "Perhaps you should evacuate too," Theon told Yuna. "Your shuttle could reach the jump point before the Krenth blockade closes." "I'm staying," Yuna said. "Why? This is not your fight." Yuna looked at the Chancellor. Over 2 years she had learned to read his alien expressions. She could see resignation in the way he held his body. He expected to die here. You sent a request to Earth for help, she said. Someone needs to be here if they answer. On the third day, the Krenth fleet surrounded Velian Prime. More than 2,000 enemy ships filled the space around the planet. The Velian defense fleet was down to 47 ships. In the command center, officers worked with quiet determination. No one spoke about surrender, but Yuna could feel the despair in the air. Chancellor, one officer said, long-range sensors are picking up something at the edge of the system. More Krenth? Theon asked. No, sir. The signature is different. Very different. Yuna's heart began to beat faster. Show me. The display zoomed out to show the entire star system. At the very edge, a massive quantum distortion was forming. It looked like space itself was tearing open. That is not Krenth technology, Theon said slowly. The distortion grew larger. Through it, shapes began to emerge. Ships. Hundreds of ships. Scan them, Theon ordered. Are they hostile? The officer worked frantically at his console. His eyes widened. Sir, I'm counting over 800 vessels. They're using quantum tunnel drives. That technology is theoretical. No one has working versions. Who are they? Theon demanded. Yuna was staring at the screen. Her hands were shaking. Run a signature match against Earth fleet codes. The officer's fingers flew across his controls. The computer beeped. Positive match. Those are human vessels, Chancellor. All of them. The command center erupted in noise. Velian officers spoke over each other in clicking, chittering voices. Theon turned to Yuna with something like shock in his posture. You said Earth had 50 ships, he said. I said your intelligence reports showed 50 ships, Yuna corrected. She felt a fierce pride burning in her chest. I never said that was all we had. A communication request flashed on the screen. Yuna opened the channel. A human voice, speaking in clear Standard Galactic, filled the command center. Velian Prime. This is Fleet Admiral Jinho of the Earth Defense Force, 7th Battle Fleet. We received your distress call. Sorry we're late. Where do you need us? Theon stared at the communication panel, then at Yuna. Then at the 800-plus ships now forming into battle formations at the edge of the system. Commander Yuna, he said softly, what have you done? Yuna smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who had grown up hearing stories of humanity's old wars. The smile of someone who knew what her species was capable of when they decided to fight. I called for backup, Chancellor, she said. And humanity answered. 48 hours earlier, deep in Earth's solar system, the emergency meeting had just begun. Fleet Admiral Jinho stood at the head of the conference table in Luna Base. Around him sat 12 other admirals, each commanding one of Earth's battle fleets. The holographic display between them showed Yuna's distress call and the tactical situation at Velian Prime. 3,000 Krenth ships, Admiral Borum said, shaking her head. That's more than we've ever seen in one place. The Velians have been good to us, Admiral Minho added. They supported our application to the Galactic Council. They've shared technology and trade routes. But this, he gestured at the numbers. This is suicide. Jinho had been quiet, studying the data. He was a tall man with gray hair and scars from the colony wars. He had commanded fleets before most of the people in this room were born. What are our orders, sir? Asked Admiral Isel, the youngest in the room. The Council of Nations is meeting now, Jinho said, but they've given me discretion to act if I think it's necessary. So I'm asking all of you. What do we do? We can't send the whole fleet, Borum argued. That would leave Earth defenseless. Against who? Minho shot back. Every species in the galaxy is either cowering from the Krenth or pretending they don't exist. No one is threatening Earth. Not yet, Borum said. But if we show all our cards now, we show that we stand by our friends, Jinho interrupted quietly. The room fell silent. The Velians called us for help. If we send nothing, or worse, if we send too little and fail, what does that tell the galaxy about humanity? That we're smart enough not to throw our lives away, someone muttered. Jinho's eyes hardened. No, it tells them we're cowards who hide when our friends are in danger. It tells them Earth's word means nothing. He stood up and walked to the hologram. With a gesture, he pulled up Earth's fleet roster. 12 full battle fleets, each with dozens of ships. Hundreds of vessels in total. Here's what I think, Jinho said. The Velians asked for backup. They probably expect us to send 10, maybe 20 ships. A token force to say we tried. The Krenth will crush them, crush us, and the galaxy will learn that humans are weak. What's the alternative? Isul asked. Jinho smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We don't send backup. We send a message. We show the Krenth, and everyone else watching, that when humans make friends, we stand by them with everything we have. Understanding dawned on the faces around the table. You want to send the entire 7th Fleet, Minho said slowly. All 847 ships, Jinho confirmed. Dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers, frigates, support vessels, troop transports, everything. The Council of Nations will never approve that, Borum said. They already did. Jinho pulled up a message on the display. 30 minutes ago, they said, and I quote, "Show the galaxy who we are." The room erupted in activity. Admirals started calling their staff, pulling up fleet positions, calculating jump routes and supply lines. How fast can we get there? Isul asked. Standard quantum drives, 2 weeks, said the tactical officer. But the new experimental drives, the ones that haven't been fully tested? Borum interrupted. Those ones, yes. They could cut the time to 36 hours. Jinho didn't hesitate. Use them. If ships break down on the way, they catch up later. But I want the main force at Velian Prime before it falls. What about the Marines? Minho asked. Full deployment. 40,000 ground troops with full combat gear. If the Krenth want a war, we'll give them one on every level. Over the next 6 hours, the 7th Fleet assembled. Ships came from patrol routes, from training exercises, from dock at Mars and Jupiter's moons. They gathered in formation beyond Neptune's orbit, a forest of metal and weapons that stretched across millions of kilometers. Captain Hyun stood on the bridge of the EDS Indomitable, the fleet's flagship. He was a veteran of the Titan Rebellion and the Mars Independence War. He had seen combat before, but never like this. All ships reporting ready, sir, his executive officer said. Good. Hyun activated the fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Indomitable. In a few hours, we will jump to the Velian system. We're going to face an enemy that has never lost a battle. An enemy that outnumbers us 3-1. An enemy that has destroyed civilizations. He paused, looking at the faces of his bridge crew. They were scared. They should be. But here's what the Krenth don't know, Hyun continued. They don't know that humans have been fighting wars since before we could write. They don't know that we've fought each other for 10,000 years over everything from resources to religion to pride. They don't know that we've developed weapons and tactics that have never been seen in galactic warfare. His voice grew harder. Most importantly, they don't know what humans do when someone threatens our friends. They're about to learn. All ships, jump on my mark. The countdown began. In his ready room, Dr. Sora was reviewing intelligence files on Krenth psychology. She was a civilian advisor, a professor of xenoanthropology who had been pulled into this mission at the last moment. They respect only strength, she muttered, reading the reports. They've never retreated from a battle. They fight until they win, or until they're all dead. Lieutenant Nari, the tactical officer, stuck her head into the room. Dr. Sora, the captain wants you on the bridge for the jump. Sora followed her out. The bridge was alive with activity. Every station was manned. Every screen showed data. Jump in 10 seconds, someone announced. Sora strapped into an observer seat. She had never experienced a quantum tunnel jump before. The new drives were supposed to be rough. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1, jump. The universe twisted. Space folded in ways that made no sense. Sora's stomach lurched. Alarms beeped as the ship's stress monitors hit yellow levels. For 36 hours, they would travel through a tunnel in quantum space, moving faster than anything in the galaxy. During the journey, Hyun gathered his senior staff. When we arrive, he said, We're going to be facing an enemy that probably won't take us seriously. We're new to them. Unknown. They'll think we're prey. Let them think it, Nari said grimly. Our advantages, Hyun continued, pulling up tactical displays. Better point defense, better targeting systems, better coordination. The Krenth use swarm tactics. They overwhelm with numbers, but our ships are designed to face multiple targets simultaneously. What about their ships? Asked the weapons officer. Fast, lightly armored, heavy forward weapons. They like to charge in and brawl. We'll use our range advantage. Kill them before they get close. For 36 hours, the fleet prepared. Pilots ran simulations. Gunners checked their weapons. Marines sharpened their combat skills in the training rooms. And then, at exactly the calculated moment, the fleet dropped out of quantum tunnel space at the edge of the Velian system. On the Indomitable's bridge, the sensor officer gasped. Sir, I'm reading over 2,000 Krenth vessels in orbit around Velian Prime. The Velian fleet is down to less than 50 ships. We're just in time then, Hyun said calmly. Communications. Open a channel to Velian Prime. A moment later, Commander Yuna's voice came through. She sounded tired, but relieved. This is Velian Prime. Admiral Jinho? Captain Hyun, actually. The Admiral is on the EDS Sovereign. We brought friends. I can see that, Captain. 800 ships. The Velians are in shock. Hyun smiled. Tell them to sit back and watch. This won't take long. He switched to fleet-wide communications. All ships, battle formation Delta. Dreadnoughts to the front, carriers to the rear, destroyers and frigates on the wings. Prepare for combat. 847 ships moved like a single organism, sliding into formation. Sir, the sensor officer said, the Krenth are hailing us. Put them through. The screen showed a Krenth commander. Its face was brutal, with too many eyes and a mouth full of sharp teeth. Unknown vessels, it said in broken Galactic. You are in Krenth territory. Leave or be destroyed. Hyun leaned forward in his chair. This is Captain Hyun of the Earth Defense Fleet. You are attacking our allies. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. The Krenth commander made a sound like laughter. You are the humans. The new species. You have no power here. Leave, or we will add your ships to our collection. Hyun looked at Nari. She nodded. The weapons were ready. Last warning, Hyun said. Withdraw now. The Krenth commander cut the transmission. Well, Hyun said quietly. We tried. Nari, you may fire when ready. Yes, sir, Nari said. Her fingers moved across her console. All ships, weapons free. Engage at will. The battle for Velian Prime began. The first missiles launched from the human fleet like a swarm of metal wasps. Thousands of them, streaking across the darkness of space, their engines burning bright. On Velian Prime, Commander Yuna watched the tactical display with held breath. The Krenth had fought hundreds of battles. They knew every trick, every strategy that galactic warfare could offer. But they had never fought humans before. The Krenth are moving to intercept, the Velian sensor officer reported. They're forming a wall formation. It was a standard defensive move. The Krenth ships would create a barrier of overlapping shields and point defense, destroying the missiles before they could reach the main fleet. But the human missiles did something unexpected. At the last moment, they split apart. Each missile became 3 smaller ones, and those split again. What had been thousands of missiles became tens of thousands of smaller warheads, each moving on a different path. What kind of technology is that? Chancellor Theon asked, his voice filled with awe. Cluster munitions, Yuna said quietly. We've been using them in warfare for centuries, just never in space before. The Krenth point defense tried to track the new targets, but there were too many. The smaller warheads slipped through the defensive wall and slammed into the Krenth ships. Explosions bloomed across the enemy formation like deadly flowers. 40 Krenth ships destroyed, the sensor officer announced. No, wait, 60, 70, they're still counting. The Krenth fleet, which had been advancing confidently, suddenly stopped. For the first time in the battle, they hesitated. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Hyun watched the results with satisfaction. That got their attention. Nari, Bring the railguns online. Lieutenant Nari's fingers danced across her console. Railguns ready, sir. Targeting solutions locked. Fire. The human dreadnoughts, 12 massive ships at the front of the formation, opened fire. Railguns fired solid projectiles at incredible speeds. There were no explosions, no flashy energy beams. Just metal slugs moving at a fraction of the speed of light. They hit the Krenth ships like hammers. Shields that could stop energy weapons meant nothing against solid mass moving that fast. The projectiles punched through hulls, through decks, through entire ships. The Krenth are breaking formation, the sensor officer on Velian Prime reported. They're trying to close the distance. They're learning, Una said. She had studied the reports. The Krenth liked to fight up close, where they could use their numbers and their heavy short-range weapons. The human long-range advantage would mean nothing if the Krenth could get into brawling range. But the humans had planned for this. Launch fighters, Captain Hune ordered. From the 140 human carriers, fighter craft poured out like angry bees from a hive. Small, fast, agile ships piloted by humans who had trained their entire lives for this moment. Lieutenant Wu led the first squadron. He had grown up on Mars, flying racing ships through the canyons and valleys. Now he flew a combat fighter armed with missiles and energy weapons. Gold Squadron, form up on me, he said into his radio. We're going to show these bugs how humans fly. The Krenth had fighter craft too, but they flew in straight lines, following programmed attack patterns. Wu's squadron moved in 3 dimensions, using maneuvers that made no sense to an enemy used to predictable tactics. Break left, Wu shouted, and his squadron scattered. A Krenth ship fired where they had been, hitting nothing but empty space. Wu looped around, came up behind the enemy fighter, and fired. The Krenth ship exploded. All across the battlefield, human fighters engaged the Krenth. They moved in ways that seemed chaotic, but it was controlled chaos. They covered each other, set up ambushes, used the debris of destroyed ships as cover. The Krenth fighter wings are being decimated, Nari reported. They've lost 300 fighters to our 40. But the main Krenth fleet was still coming. 2,000 ships charging toward the human formation, their weapons firing in a continuous barrage. Brace for impact, Yun said calmly. Point defense, full power. The human point defense systems activated. Every ship in the fleet had dozens of rapid-fire guns designed to shoot down incoming missiles and fighters. They created a wall of fire that nothing could pass through alive. Krenth missiles exploded by the hundreds before reaching their targets. The few that got through hit human shields and dissipated harmlessly. The Krenth had never seen defensive fire this accurate or this intense. They're still coming, the weapons officer said. Then we meet them head-on, Hyun replied. All ships, advance. Show them what human warships can do. The human fleet moved forward, maintaining perfect formation. The dreadnoughts led, their heavy armor and shields absorbing the Krenth fire. Behind them, the destroyers and frigates added their own weapons to the fight. The 2 fleets collided in a fury of fire and metal. On Velian Prime, the tactical display had become a confused mess of red and blue dots, swirling around each other in deadly combat. Theon could barely follow what was happening. Who's winning? He asked. Una studied the numbers flowing across the screen. We are. The Krenth have lost 500 ships. We've lost 3. 3 against 500? Theon's antennae shot up in disbelief. How? Better ships, better training, better tactics. Una pointed at the screen. Watch. See how our ships move? They're always supporting each other. No ship fights alone. The Krenth just charge in and hope their numbers overwhelm us. Indeed, the human fleet fought like a single organism. Ships covered each other's blind spots. Damaged vessels fell back while fresh ones moved forward. They concentrated fire on single targets, destroying enemy ships one by one rather than spreading their fire thin. The Krenth war leader Vex watched his fleet fall apart with growing horror. He had fought in 100 battles across 50 star systems. He had destroyed civilizations. He had never lost a fight. But these humans fought like nothing he had ever encountered. They used weapons he had never seen. They employed tactics that made no sense. And worst of all, they showed no fear. All ships, full advance, he ordered. Overwhelm them with numbers. They cannot stop us all. The Krenth fleet surged forward in a desperate charge. If they could just reach the human ships, if they could engage them at close range, their numbers would mean something. But the humans didn't retreat. They advanced to meet the charge. Captain Hyun stood on his bridge, watching the Krenth fleet rush toward them. "Steady," he said to his crew. "Hold formation. Wait for it." The distance closed. 5,000 kilometers. 3,000. 1,000. "Now," Hyun said quietly. "All ships, broadside." The human ships, which had been facing the Krenth head-on, suddenly turned 90 degrees. Every weapon on their sides faced the enemy. Hundreds of railguns, thousands of missile tubes, countless energy weapons. They all fired at once. The Krenth charge shattered. Ships exploded by the dozens, by the hundreds. The survivors tried to turn, to evade, but they were packed too tightly together. Every human shot hit something. "They're breaking," Nari shouted. "The Krenth are retreating." For the first time in their history, the Krenth swarm turned and ran. But the humans didn't let them go. The fleet pursued, their faster ships overtaking the fleeing Krenth vessels. The fighters harried the enemy, preventing them from forming any defensive formations. War leader Vex watched his fleet die around him. Of the 3,000 ships he had brought to Velian space, fewer than 800 remained. And the humans were still coming, still firing, still destroying. "Signal the fleet," he said, his voice hollow. "Surrender. Signal surrender before we all die." His communications officer stared at him. "War leader. The Krenth do not surrender. We have never—" "Signal surrender," Vex roared. The white flag codes went out across Krenth channels. The surviving ships stopped firing, stopped fleeing, and just drifted in space. On the Indomitable, Hyun received the surrender signal. "Cease fire," he ordered. "All ships, cease fire." The human fleet stopped shooting. Suddenly, the battlefield was quiet, except for the crackling of damaged ships and the small explosions of debris. "Sir, we're receiving a message from Velian Prime," the communications officer said. Theon's face appeared on the screen. His alien features showed amazement and gratitude. "Captain Hyun, we don't have words. You saved us. You saved our entire civilization." Hyun nodded. "That's what friends do, Chancellor. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some prisoners to secure." Admiral Jinho will be in contact shortly to discuss the next steps. As the transmission ended, Hyun looked out at the battlefield. Krenth ships drifted everywhere, their hulls broken and their crews defeated. In 8 hours of combat, humanity had faced its first real test against a galactic power. And humanity had won. "Nari," Hyun said quietly, "send a message to Earth Fleet Command. Tell them the 7th Fleet has secured Velian Prime. Krenth Fleet destroyed or captured. We await further orders." "Yes, sir," Nari said, then paused. "Sir, do you think this will change things? With the galaxy, I mean." Hyun looked at the stars beyond the viewport. Somewhere out there, other civilizations had watched this battle unfold on their sensors. They had seen what happened when the Krenth swarm met humanity. "Oh yes, Lieutenant," he said softly. "Everything just changed." The Krenth flagship was a massive vessel, larger than any human ship. Captain Minji stood in the docking bay of her marine transport, looking at the damaged warship through the airlock window. Smoke drifted from holes in its hull. Parts of it were still on fire. "Remember," she told her squad, "these are prisoners now. We treat them according to galactic law. No revenge, no cruelty. We show them that humans can be honorable victors." Her Marines nodded. They were tough soldiers who had trained for years, but this was their first real combat deployment. They checked their weapons one last time and prepared to board. The airlock connected with a metallic clang. Minji was first through, her rifle ready. Inside, the Krenth ship was dark and damaged. Emergency lights flickered. The air smelled of burning metal and something organic that Minji couldn't identify. They found the Krenth crew gathered in the main cargo bay. Hundreds of them, their many eyes watching the humans with fear and confusion. At the front stood War Leader Vex, his armor scorched and broken. "I am Captain Minji of the Earth Defense Force Marines," she announced in clear Galactic. "This ship is now under human control. You are prisoners of war. You will be treated fairly, and according to established galactic conventions. Do you understand?" Vex stared at her for a long moment. "You are so small," he said finally. "All of you. How did creatures so small build such powerful ships?" Minji smiled, though there was no warmth in it. "Size doesn't matter, War Leader. What matters is what you do with what you have." Over the next hours, the Marines secured the Krenth ships one by one. There was no resistance. The Krenth had fought until ordered to surrender, but once that order came, they accepted it completely. On Velian Prime, Admiral Jinho had arrived and set up a temporary command center. He sat across a table from War Leader Vex, with Commander Yuna and Dr. Sora present as witnesses. "I need to understand something," Vex said. His translator turned his clicking speech into Galactic. "Your Commander Yuna sent a distress call, a request for help. Why did you send so many ships? Surely a few dozen would have been enough to send a message." Jinho leaned back in his chair. He was an old man with tired eyes, but those eyes held steel. "Would a few dozen ships have stopped you?" "No," Vex admitted. "Then they wouldn't have been enough," Jinho said simply. "When humans commit to something, we commit fully. Yuna asked for help. We gave her everything we could." "Everything?" Vex's many eyes widened. "That was not your entire fleet?" Dr. Sora spoke up. "That was the 7th Fleet. Earth has 11 more just like it." The room went quiet. Vex processed this information, and something like fear crossed his alien features. 12 fleets, that's 10,000 ships. More. More, Jinho confirmed. And that's just our military vessels. We have civilian shipyards that can build more. We have resources from a dozen colony worlds. We have a population of 20 billion who will fight if needed. "But you're new," Vex said, almost pleading. "You've only been in space for 100 of your years. How do you have such power?" Jinho stood and walked to the window. Outside, human ships patrolled the space around Velian Prime. Krenth prisoners were being transferred to holding facilities. Velian refugees were returning to their homes. "War Leader, what is the longest war your people have ever fought?" he asked. "The conquest of the Drellian sector? 12 years?" "Humanity has been at war with itself for 10,000 years, Jinho said quietly. "We've fought over land, over resources, over beliefs, over pride. We've built weapons that could destroy our own planet. We've nearly wiped ourselves out 3 times. The only reason we survived was that we learned to fight smarter, harder, and more completely than anyone else." He turned back to face Vex. "When we reached the stars, we didn't forget those lessons. We just applied them to a bigger battlefield." Vex lowered his head in a gesture that looked like defeat. "What will you do with us?" "That depends," Jinho said. "I've read reports about the Krenth swarm. You've destroyed civilizations, enslaved populations, committed what we would call war crimes. Under galactic law, you could be executed." "We only followed the way of our people," Vex said. "That's not an excuse," Yuna said sharply. "Following orders doesn't absolve you of responsibility for your actions." Jinho held up a hand. "However, you did surrender when you realized you were beaten. You ordered your fleet to stop fighting, which saved lives on both sides. That counts for something." He sat back down. "Here's what's going to happen. You and your officers will stand a trial before the Galactic Council. You'll answer for your crimes. But I'll personally testify that you chose surrender over pointless death. It might save your life. It might not." "And my people?" Vex asked. "The Krenth Empire?" "Your empire is broken," Jinho said, bluntly. "You brought your entire invasion fleet here. Without it, your worlds are defenseless. Other species you've conquered are already rebelling. Your empire will collapse within months. Then my people will die. Not necessarily." Jinho pulled up a holographic display showing the Krenth home worlds. "Earth is prepared to offer humanitarian assistance, food, medicine, protection from revenge attacks, but in exchange, the Krenth will agree to a peace treaty and reparations to the civilizations you've harmed." Vex looked at the human admiral with something like wonder. You would help us? After everything we've done? We would help your civilians, Jinho corrected. The ones who had no say in your wars. Children, the elderly, the innocent. They don't deserve to suffer for their leaders' mistakes. Dr. Sora added, we're also prepared to share technology and knowledge. Help your people transition from a military empire to a peaceful society, if you're willing to change. Why? Vex asked. Why offer mercy to an enemy? Jinho smiled grimly. Because humans know what it's like to be on both sides of war. We've been conquerors, and we've been victims. We've learned that the cycle of revenge only creates more suffering. Someone has to break it. The meeting ended shortly after. As Vex was escorted back to the holding facility, he passed by a window showing the planet below. Velian cities were lighting up as power was restored. Refugee ships were landing. Life was returning to normal. He had come here expecting to conquer another world. Instead, he had discovered a species that fought like demons but showed mercy like angels. It was confusing and terrifying in equal measure. Meanwhile, in the Galactic Council chambers, billions of light-years away, an emergency session was underway. Representative Keyless of the Drellian Union stood before the council. We must address the human situation immediately. They've just demonstrated military power that exceeds most of our combined fleets. They saved the Velians, another representative argued. Should we punish them for helping an ally? I'm not suggesting punishment, Kello said. I'm suggesting we recognize reality. Humanity is now a major power whether we like it or not. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some species were grateful that someone had finally stood up to the Krenth. Others were terrified of what humanity might do with such power. Council leader Theris called for order. We cannot ignore what happened. The humans deployed nearly 1,000 ships and defeated the Krenth swarm in 8 hours. This changes everything. What do we know about Earth's intentions? Someone asked. Theris pulled up a report. Earth has sent an official communication. They're requesting a permanent seat on the Council Security Committee. They're also offering mutual defense pacts to any species that wants one. They're trying to build an alliance, Kilo said. Smart. Very smart. Should we grant their request? Theris asked. Do we have a choice? Another representative said. If we refuse, they might decide the council is irrelevant. Better to have them inside the system than outside it. The vote was called. It wasn't unanimous, but it was decisive. Earth would join the Galactic Council Security Committee. Back on Velian Prime, Chancellor Theon held a ceremony in the central plaza. Thousands of Velians gathered to honor their human saviors. Admiral Jinho stood uncomfortably on the stage while Theon made a speech, praising Earth's courage and friendship. We asked for help, Theon said, his voice amplified across the plaza. We expected a token force, maybe a few ships to show solidarity. Instead, humanity sent a war fleet. They risked everything for us. He turned to Jinho. Why? Admiral, I must know. Why did your people do this for us? Jinho took the microphone. He was not a man who enjoyed speeches, but he knew this moment mattered. Chancellor, you and I come from different worlds, different biologies, different cultures. But 2 years ago, when Earth applied to join the Galactic Council, the Velian Coalition supported us. You opened trade routes. You shared technology. You treated us as equals when other species saw us as primitives. He paused, looking out at the crowd of alien faces. You became our friends. And humans have a saying. You don't leave friends behind. When you called for help, we answered. Not because we had to. Not because we wanted something in return, but because that's what friends do. The plaza erupted in cheers. Velians made a sound like wind chimes when they were happy, and the noise was almost deafening. Later that night, Yuna sat in her quarters writing a report for Earth Fleet Command. She had been awake for nearly 3 days straight, running on adrenaline and coffee. There was a knock on her door. Come in, she called. Admiral Jinho entered. Thought you might want to know, he said. The Council approved our seat on the Security Committee. Also, 7 species have requested defense pacts with Earth. 7? Yuna sat up. That fast? Word travels quick when you destroy the galaxy's biggest threat in 8 hours. Jinho sat down across from her. You did good, Commander. Your message saved the Velians and changed Earth's position in the galaxy. Yuna shook her head. I just asked for help. You're the ones who brought a war fleet. Jinho smiled. You asked for backup. We brought an answer. There's a difference. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Velian Prime. Ambassador Taeyang stood before the Galactic Council for the first time as Earth's official representative. He was a diplomat who had spent 20 years learning alien languages and cultures, preparing for this moment. The council chamber was enormous, a circular room with seats for representatives from 200 species. At the center was the Security Committee table, where the most powerful civilizations sat. Earth now had a seat there. The council recognizes Ambassador Taeyang of Earth, Council Leader Theris announced. Taeyang walked to the speaking platform. He could feel hundreds of alien eyes watching him. Some curious, some friendly, some still fearful of what humanity represented. Honored members of the Galactic Council, he began. 6 months ago, humanity was a minor species, new to the stars, untested, unknown. Today, we stand before you as members of the Security Committee with defense pacts with a dozen civilizations. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Some of you fear this change. You worry about human ambitions, human power, human intentions. I understand those fears. Let me address them directly. A holographic display activated behind him, showing Earth. This is our home, one planet among billions. We do not seek to conquer the galaxy. We do not want an empire. What we want is simple: safety for ourselves and our friends. The display changed to show the Battle of Velian Prime. When the Velians called for help, we answered with everything we had. Some called it excessive. Some said we should have sent a smaller force. But we sent what was needed to win decisively. And that is Earth's philosophy, Taeyang continued. We do not believe in half measures. We do not believe in token gestures. When we commit to something, we commit completely. When we make friends, we stand by them. When we make promises, we keep them. He looked directly at the assembled representatives. Earth offers partnership, not dominance. We will defend our allies with all our strength. We will share our technology and knowledge. We will work within the Council's laws and traditions. But make no mistake, we will not be pushed around. We will not abandon our friends, and we will not tolerate threats to galactic peace. The chamber was silent for a moment. Then, slowly, applause began. It started with the Velian delegation and spread across the room. Taeyang sat down at Earth's seat on the Security Committee. He had done it. Humanity was now officially a galactic power. Across the galaxy, on a joint military base orbiting Velian Prime, Admiral Yuna inspected the new facility. She had been promoted after the battle, given command of the first combined human-alien defense station. The base was incredible. Human and Velian engineers had worked together to create something unique. Human weapon systems combined with Velian shield technology. Human tactical doctrine mixed with Velian defensive strategies. Admiral Yuna, a young officer called. The first class of cadets is arriving. Yuna walked to the observation deck and watched as transport ships docked. Young humans and aliens disembarked together, all wearing the uniform of the new Galactic Defense Academy. This was Admiral Jinho's idea. Train the next generation together. Mix species, share knowledge, build friendships that would last a lifetime. It was brilliant. Among the cadets, Yuna spotted a young Velian speaking excitedly with a human student. 6 months ago, their species had been strangers. Now they would train together, fight together, maybe die together. The future looks different than I expected, Chancellor Theon said, coming to stand beside her. He often visited the base to see how his people and humans worked together. Different how? Yuna asked. Safer, more hopeful. Theon's antennae waved and what Yuna had learned was contentment. Before your people came, the galaxy felt dark. The strong preyed on the weak. Species like mine survived by hiding, by staying small and unnoticed. Now you have friends who will fight for you, Yuna finished. Not just us, everyone. Theon gestured at the cadets. 7 species have joined the alliance. 7 more are considering it. The old powers are nervous. They're not used to someone standing up to bullies. Yuna smiled. They better get used to it. Meanwhile, in a high-security facility on Earth's moon, Dr. Sora interviewed the last of the Krenth prisoners before their trial. War leader Vex looked different than he had 6 months ago. Smaller somehow. Defeated. But also, strangely, at peace. The trials begin next week, Sora said. The council prosecutors are pushing for execution. I expected nothing less, Vex replied. I commanded forces that destroyed worlds, killed billions. I deserve whatever judgment comes. Admiral Jinho is testifying on your behalf, Sora continued. He's arguing that you chose surrender when you could have fought to the death, that you've provided valuable intelligence about other hostile empires, that you've shown genuine remorse. Why does he bother? Vex asked. I am his enemy. You were his enemy, Sora corrected. Past tense. Jinho believes in redemption. He thinks people can change. Vex was quiet for a moment. My people are scattered now. The empire has collapsed. Former slaves have taken revenge on Krenth colonies. Thousands are dead. And thousands more are alive because of Earth's humanitarian missions, Sora said. She pulled up reports showing human ships delivering food and medicine to Krenth civilian populations. We've evacuated 3 colonies that were under attack. We've provided refugee support to 2 million Krenth civilians. You help the people I oppressed and the people who oppress them, Vex said wonderingly. How do you choose? We don't, Sora said simply. We help everyone who needs it. That's what separates us from empires like yours used to be. The interview ended, and Sora returned to her office. She had been studying the reports from across the galaxy, tracking how civilizations responded to Earth's emergence as a power. The results were fascinating. Species that had been rivals for centuries were now talking about cooperation. Weak civilizations were standing up to stronger neighbors, confident that Earth might back them. Trade routes were opening. Treaties were being signed. The galaxy was changing. But not everyone was happy about it. Admiral Jinho stood in his office aboard the EDS Sovereign, reading intelligence reports with growing concern. The ship was now flagship of the Allied Defense Forces, a combined fleet of human and alien vessels. Sir, you need to see this, his intelligence officer said, bringing up a star map. Red markers appeared in a section of space beyond the known galaxy. Lots of them. What am I looking at? Jinho asked. Long-range probe data. There's something out there, something big. The probes detected massive energy signatures, ship movements, construction. Jinho felt a cold weight in his stomach. How big? Bigger than the Krenth swarm. Much bigger. We're talking tens of thousands of ships, maybe more. Do we know who they are? Negative. But War Leader Vex mentioned something in his interrogations. He said the Krenth were expanding so aggressively because they were running from something that scared them. Jinho studied the map. The red markers were moving slowly toward known space. At their current speed, they would reach the outer colonies in 2 years. Send this data to Earth Fleet Command and the Galactic Council, he ordered, and start mobilizing the fleets. Quietly. I don't want to cause panic, but we need to be ready. Ready for what, sir? For whatever comes next. 3 weeks later, Admiral Jinho received a priority communication. The source was unknown, the encryption unfamiliar. When his communications officer finally decrypted it, the message was simple. To the species called humanity. We have observed your victory against the Krenth. Impressive for such a young civilization. We are the Varn Collective. We control 200 systems beyond your borders. We are coming to evaluate whether your species deserves to exist. Prepare yourselves. Jinho read the message 3 times. Then he called an emergency meeting of the Allied Defense Council. Representatives from 12 species gathered via hologram. They looked at the message with varying expressions of fear and confusion. Is this a joke? Someone asked. No, Jinho said firmly. Our intelligence confirms massive fleet movements in that region. This is real. What do they mean by evaluate whether we deserve to exist? Asked the Velian representative. It means they're coming to judge us, Taoyang said from the Galactic Council chambers. And if we fail their evaluation, they'll try to destroy us. The chamber erupted in panicked voices. Species representatives talked over each other, demanding answers, proposing retreat, suggesting surrender. Jinho let them talk for a moment. Then he stood up, and the room gradually quieted. "Here's what we know," he said calmly. "A powerful empire is coming. They have more ships than the Krenth did. They're technologically advanced. They see themselves as superior to us. We should negotiate," someone suggested. "Perhaps we can reason with them." "Perhaps," Jinho agreed, "and we will try. Diplomacy is always the first option. But we should also prepare for the possibility that diplomacy fails." "How do we fight an empire of 200 systems?" another representative asked. "Even with Earth's help, we're outnumbered." Jinho smiled, but there was steel in it. "The Krenth thought they outnumbered us too. They learned different." He pulled up fleet rosters. The Allied Defense Forces currently consist of 2,300 ships from multiple species. Earth is prepared to commit 8 more battle fleets. That's another 6,000 ships. 6,000, someone gasped. "You said you had 12 fleets total." "We did," Jinho confirmed. "We've built 3 more in the last 6 months, and our shipyards are operating at full capacity. By the time the Varn arrive, we'll have 15,000 ships ready." Yuna spoke up from her station. "The Defense Academy is also accelerating its training programs. We're graduating new officers and pilots every month. We're sharing human combat doctrine with all allied species." "But will it be enough?" the Velian representative asked. Jinho looked at each face in the holographic display. "I don't know," he said honestly. "The Varn might be too strong. They might have weapons we can't counter. They might defeat us." He paused. "But they'll know they were in a fight, and every species in the galaxy will see that we stood together, that we didn't surrender, that we defended our right to exist with everything we had." Taeyang added from the council chambers. "Earth's official position is this. We will not submit to evaluation. We will not bow to threats. The Varn can come in peace and talk, or they can come in war and bleed. Their choice." The meeting ended with a unanimous vote. The Allied Defense Forces would prepare for war while attempting diplomatic contact. That night, Jinho stood alone on the observation deck of the Sovereign, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, an empire was preparing to judge humanity and its allies, to decide if they deserve to exist. A notification chimed. Incoming message from Earth Fleet Command. "Admiral Jinho, this is Fleet Command. We've received intelligence updates on the Varn situation. All 12 battle fleets are being placed on high alert. Additional resources are being allocated to shipbuilding. Earth stands ready." Jinho sent back a simple acknowledgement. Then he opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Jinho. By now, you've all heard about the Varn Collective. Some of you are scared. That's natural, they're powerful, and they're coming." He paused, choosing his words. "But I want you to remember something. 6 months ago, the galaxy thought the Krenth swarm was unbeatable. They had crushed civilizations for centuries. Everyone feared them, until we showed them what humans and their allies could do when we stood together. The Varn will learn the same lesson," he continued. "They'll learn that the allied species don't bend, we don't break, and we sure as hell don't let anyone tell us we don't deserve to exist. So we prepare, we train, we build, and when they come, we'll be ready. Not because we want war, but because we refuse to submit to threats. This is Admiral Jinho. Stay sharp, stay ready, and remember, we stand together." The transmission ended. Across the Allied fleet, thousands of ships received the message. Human vessels, Velian cruisers, ships from a dozen species, all united under one banner. The Varn Collective was coming to evaluate them. They would find civilizations that had learned to stand together. They would find humans who had brought warfare to a new level. They would find allies who refused to abandon each other. And somewhere in deep space, long-range sensors detected the first Varn scout ships entering the edge of known space. The evaluation was about to begin.